Hello, everybody. We're going to get started in about 2 minutes, right at 4:30. Hopefully, everybody's staying healthy and well and sane. It's a nice, cool day in Austin, Texas. Somebody raise their hand just so I know that everybody can hear me, if you don't mind. All right, fantastic. So again, we're going to get started in just a moment or two. We're going to wait till 4:30 as everybody logs in. If you're unfamiliar with me, my name is Scott Campbell. I am a registered investment advisor here in Austin, Texas. Been here for about 23 years. We run a small boutique wealth management firm, specialize in retirement income planning. Our office is on the corner of 15th and West. But of course, like most of us, I am working from home today. If you're not on our email list, send me an email at scott@austinfirstfinancial.com, and we will add you to our email list. It'll give you updates on our upcoming webinars and events. And we send out a weekly newsletter that has all kinds of good stuff in there, including Joke of the Week, which we get a lot of comments on. All right. Again, I'm going to get started here in about 30 seconds. All right, folks, welcome. Again, my name is Scott Campbell. I am a registered investment advisor here in Austin, Texas. We're going to get started. I'm going to take about 15, 20 minutes of your time to review this presentation. Quickly, we're going to go through what we went through last week. But if you're unfamiliar with me, again, my name is Scott Campbell with Austin First Financial. Been on the corner of West and 15th since 1997. We run a small boutique investment firm, wealth management firm, specializing in retirement income planning. So last week I went over several things, including the ability for you to take early withdrawals from your 401k or retirement accounts without having to pay a 10% penalty, so you can have access to those funds. If you are of the age that you have to take a required minimum distribution, that has been waived for this year. So you are not required to take any distributions, although if you want to, you can. There's some major tax opportunities by doing Roth conversions this year. If your income has gone down substantially because of the virus, that's a good reason to think about Roth conversions, as well as the fact that asset values are down. So we can do a Roth conversion at a lower value and then climb back up through the Roth, and that would be a tax-free climb at that point. Life insurance, if you need coverage, we're suggesting you move quickly. If you have existing coverage, it will cover the virus. However, there are some insurers that are talking about excluding that from new policies being issued. So again, if you need that, access it now. Lines of credit. If you have a business line of credit or if you have a home equity loan line of credit, and it's available to you, but you haven't accessed it yet, I'm going to suggest you do so. In other words, banks can and will revoke those lines of credit, and they did that back in 2008, 2009, and it left people unaware and kind of in dire straits. So what we're suggesting is go ahead and move that cash over to your checking or your savings. We talked about market risk and how you should get individualized advice. It's difficult to kind of get generalized advice from a newspaper or, what's going on TV, because those millennials are going to have different advice than those people that are retiring right now and they need income. So get individualized advice. And finally, we talked about laddering fixed interest rate products. So you're going to get better rates for longer terms. So as an example, you might have a 3-year product and a 5-year product, and you could ladder those maturity dates so you're having money come due. Right now, we still have one carrier that's offering a guaranteed 4% interest rate for 5 years, which is fantastic as treasuries go to near zero. So let's move on to what we're going to cover this week. We're going to talk about the 4 things to check immediately. There's a free white paper that we have available, which I'm going to give you access to right now. Give me just a second, sorry. I think that's available already for you. And we're going to talk about tax loss harvesting. So let's get into the 4 things to check immediately: expenses, assets, risk tolerance, and if you have an income gap, you need to address that now. So what are we talking about as far as expenses? Research shows that if you cut your spending by a small amount permanently, as opposed to a large amount during a crisis like we're receiving right now, you're going to have a better chance of a successful lifestyle in retirement. So think about ways that you can cut your expenses, your budget, by small amounts, but make it a permanent cut, as opposed to we're going to take a big 25% cut out this year and then kind of revert back to normal spending in the future. We have a free budgeting tool if you need some assistance with that. So our software that we utilize for financial planning is called Right Capital. And if you would like access to this, please email us at scott@austinfirstfinancial.com. We're going to give you access to this software. Not only does it do financial planning, but it has a budgeting tool, which will allow you to kind of cut those expenses where you see fit. Additionally, we want you to make sure that you take inventory of your assets and make sure you know where your nest egg lives. Now, for some of you, this might seem obvious, but I run into so many people that have things kind of all over the place and they don't have them organized. They don't even have a spreadsheet as to where things are. So again, this software will help you organize and get everything in one spot. And believe it or not, I've run into married couples where they don't talk very much about money. And I've heard this not once, but twice already, where my wife just didn't know. In other words, didn't know the amount of risk they were taking, didn't know where some accounts were being held, didn't have access to those accounts. And this is very dangerous, obviously. So get your house in order and make sure that you have everything kind of lined up and you know exactly where all those assets are and how much risk you're taking with those assets. Which brings us to risk tolerance. I've heard this several times this week since our last webinar. People tell me they thought they were in this balanced portfolio. They thought they were in a position where something like this was not going to hurt them very much. And then they hear, it did. They were too aggressive. And, people are saying, I've lost so much money, literally hundreds of thousands of dollars, if not more, because they were taking too much risk in that portfolio, or they didn't know how much risk they were taking. So if you haven't had a risk analysis done, this is something we can help you with and help you understand how much risk you're taking in that portfolio. We use a program called Riskalyze, and on a scale of 1 to 100, it helps you understand how much risk you're taking, how much potential gain you could have, and how much potential loss you could have, not just in a percentage, but also a dollar amount. So, sometimes 10, 12, 15% doesn't sound like much. But if we're able to say, hey, that 10, 12, 15% could represent $250,000, all of a sudden it brings it home a little bit more. That's a substantial amount of money. So again, if you need help with this, please email us. We'll get in touch with you and set you up with a risk analysis. Number 4 is the income gap. So if we're looking at your expenses and we're looking at the amount of money that you have, the assets that you have, if they're not there, if they're not covering you through age 88, you're going to have this income gap. And we need to address that. We need to say, okay, let's come up with a plan, a written plan to address this income gap. And if you've never had a written plan developed before, it's really helpful because it's going to help you understand where everything is. Please utilize us. I am a retirement income certified professional. I have the specialized certified designation where this is my specialty. I can help you understand when to take Social Security. Does it make sense to take it early or late? I can help you understand when to do the Roth conversions. I can help you understand, should we spend down our existing assets first before we claim Social Security? And then all the tax implications. So this is something that I've held for multiple years now, and it goes into our planning. The income plan is going to be laid out so you know exactly where the money's coming from. In other words, how much money's coming in, how much is going out, what are your tax implications, when do the RMDs come into play, do we have any unsaved or unspent money, can that be repositioned? Once this is outlined, you're able to kind of access this and see it and keep up to date with your cash flows. And if things change, the program's going to help you understand how that's going to affect your overall portfolio moving forward. So for a lot of people, plan A is in place, but then all of a sudden a job gets lost or you're furloughed and, we don't know when you're going to go back to work. We can put that into the overall plan and let you see how that is going to affect, the next 10, 15, 20 years of your retirement. Most importantly, we're able to stress test that income plan. You're able to play the what if game. So if the market's crashed by another 20, 30%, how does that affect your overall plan? What if taxes go way up because, the government's got the stimulus package where they're giving away trillions of dollars? How does that affect your plan? What if Social Security doesn't come through? What if they only pay 75% of the promised benefits? How does that affect your plan? So we're able to stress test this and say, okay, based on your parameters and your goals, this is what things look like. And if all of a sudden we find out that something you're concerned about, like living too long as an example, is really going to affect your portfolio, we can redesign your income to take advantage of that particular stress and make sure that it's accounted for. So by stress testing, we're able to individualize and make that plan more specific to you and your circumstances. Let's move on to tax loss harvesting. This is a very powerful technique that allows you to sell your investments at a loss in order to reduce your tax liability. Now, this has nothing to do with market timing in the sense that we're not trying to time whether the market's up, down, or sideways. We're basically taking advantage of the tax code. And you can harvest losses to offset your gains as well as up to $3,000 in non-investment income. So real simple. If we had a $5,000 gain with a stock, let's say Apple, and we had a $5,000 loss with another stock, let's say Ford. If you sell both of them, then there's basically a wash. We're not going to owe any taxes. We're not going to get any kind of loss that we can offset or write off. But let's say that we only have a loss. We basically sold Ford. We have a $5,000 loss. We don't have any gains. Well, you can still offset your income by $3,000 and then carry forward the other $2,000 in capital losses. Now, there's something called the wash sale rule. And that's when you harvest your losses, you cannot repurchase substantially identical investments for the next 30 days. But substantially identical is, that's a nebulous term in the sense that it has to be really, really like. In other words, I can't sell Apple and then buy Apple again. But I can with indexes. So here's an example. If I'm going to harvest a loss, I can maintain the risk and return in my portfolio by buying a similar index, but not the same one. So as an example, let's say that we had the S&P 500 and I was using an exchange traded fund and it was the SPY, the SPY. And if you don't know what this is, that's okay. It's one of the securities. But I sold off the S&P 500 and now I want to try to harvest those losses, but I still want to maintain my position in the market. Well, I might be able to go and buy a different ETF, a secondary ETF, and that might be with the Dow Jones. Completely different index, completely different stocks, but you know what? It correlates very well with the SPY or with the S&P 500, meaning it has a similar risk and similar returns over time. And I could do that for 30 days, keep the money in that Dow Jones index, and then move it back to the SPY after 30 days and get back into my original positions. By doing this, you're locking in your capital losses, which can then be used to offset gains, or again, against income. So very powerful technique that you should look into utilizing. If you need assistance, you don't have to do this alone. We're here to help you. Again, this is a strategy based on opportunity created by the tax law, not on market speculations. And by utilizing this, in some cases, your after-tax returns could be greatly enhanced. So take a look at this if you think it's going to apply to you. Look, I only wanted to take 10, 15 minutes of your time. I hope you're safe and you're well. If we can help, please reach out, austinfirstfinancial.com, or you can email me at scott@austinfirstfinancial.com. We also have a opportunity for you to schedule a phone call with us, just 15 minutes to see if we can help out. Again, my name is Scott at austinfirstfinancial.com. Everybody be safe and have a good night. Take care.